Ninja! Ninja! Ninja!
It's 11:59 at Radio Free America. This is Uncle Sam with music and the truth until dawn. Right now, I got a few words for some of our brothers and sisters in the occupied zone. The chair is against the wall. The chair is against the wall. John has a long mustache. John has a long mustache. It's 12 o'clock, Americans, another day closer to victory. And for all of you out there on or behind the line, this is your song.
And welcome everybody to our daily gun show. Come be live every weeknight at midnight Eastern, and we talk about guns for a while. Let's see, it is episode 1082. So we've been doing the show for a bit. It is a Tuesday night, and it's May 12th. So we've been posting a lot of stuff over on the calendar. We're getting ready to start posting some more videos about that, but we updated Instagram with that. Otherwise, we've got Guns of Barbecue joining in. Send a link out to Patreons. If you want to jump in, feel free. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Howdy.
It didn't come out very good, but yeah, thanks for joining us. And if you're listening and you're a Patreon, then jump into the link over there. Otherwise, you have people joining us, be part of the conversation. Our goal is to have a conversation every night. So sometimes it's good, sometimes it ain't, but it's every night. That's how you get to 1,082 episodes. So I usually start out, as we're waiting for people to show up, by jumping over to the calendar. One of my projects I like to do is check out our firearms history, because that's a way to update or keep up to date on the different stuff that's happening out there. And, so don't forget some of the stuff like open carry or hunting with suppressors, or when the laws happen and stuff like that. So being the 12th, we have Eric Sykes died today, back in 1945. He was a pretty interesting guy who was a cop, went to Shanghai and worked on the streets there, got a lot of knowledge with knife fights and gun fights, hand-to-hand, down and dirty kind of stuff with a guy named Fairbarn. Went back to Europe. Actually, had brought a bunch of illegal guns with them, which actually turned out to be pretty handy, because then those guys were tasked with basically developing the OSS. I'm putting it all in a nutshell there, but a really interesting dude. Their tactics, their fighting styles and stuff turned out to be what the Marines use, still use today. Their manuals that were written back in the early 1900s are still reprinted, and there's so many ways to kill. There's only so many ways to kill somebody, and they made a science of it. So there's lots of people that still use that info. Interesting people, and you might remember the name from the Sykes Fairbarn dagger. He's done some other stuff as well in the knife realm. Otherwise, today's also the day that Terminator comes back, and Kyle came back to kill the Terminator. So this month gets thrown to Star Wars quite a bit, but it's really Terminator month. Otherwise, tomorrow is going to be the birth of William Savage. Pretty cool dude. Probably chat about him tomorrow, since there ain't nothing else in the calendar the day after. But if you haven't ever looked at Savage before, the guy where Savage rifles come from, super interesting guy. We'll talk about him tomorrow. So I see Heavy is out there, and Ozzy is out there. Good evening. And Barbecue's in here, so I don't know where we want to chat tonight. Got all kinds of ways we could go, I suppose. But thanks everybody for showing up. Where do we want to go?
I was really enjoying your live chat that you're just having about the mini handguns.
Mini revolvers. So I've been attempting to create something that I can put up on like Amazon or some kind of print on demand or whatever. And obviously one of my interests is the little mini revolver. So as I've been efforting to like figure out, what all there is to say about them versus what all I can say, what I know about them. It turned out to be about 30-something pages, and I think it's going to end up being pretty good. I just did that color draft of it today, so I could see what the font size or how big the letters are on there. I was a little concerned. Whenever I'm doing it on a computer, I'm not familiar enough with it yet. If it says font size 10, what does that really mean? Can you read that? And big difference between fonts. If you make it too big, you fill up a half a sheet of paper pretty quick. And sometimes that's all you're trying to do, I guess. Some of the books out there, you barely have a paragraph on each page. I'm not trying to sell paper, I'm trying to get information out there. So I've been putting a lot of effort, not so much into the data, because at this point it's all data I've already had, like content I've already used from videos and projects in the past, from websites and stuff, but it's been kind of putting it all in one place and then organizing it up into some kind of, so that makes some kind of sense. And now I'm about where I can start to roll up my sleeves. I already got into that rut yesterday. I kind of talked about it when I found out about the little squirt guns that came out this month back in 80. I'm trying not to go down tangents, but I keep finding holes that I don't know about. Like the Charter was the Dixie Derringers. I have one. Matt has one. But aside from knowing that they exist and knowing what years they came around, I don't know much about those at all. So that's going to be interesting to try to find out more about those. Bob's out there. So I don't know. Do you have one of these things, or have you thought about buying one before?
I think my mother has one that my grandfather had. So whenever she passes, we'll see which person gets it out of my siblings and myself. But honestly, at my local shops, you don't find them too often. I'm sure if I wanted one, I'd have to go in and ask them to order it for me. And it's just not something I normally think about getting when I go in there. If there is one in there, I'd probably end up picking it up. But I've just always had a natural interest in them. I always thought they were pretty cool.
Yeah, and I probably could do something about like who would buy these things or the typical buyers of them. But yeah, a lot of times, well, first they can only make so many of them. There's pretty much one factory now making them, and they make quite a few, but they make other things. They make semi-autos and they make quite a few models. So although they're making them pretty much constantly, only so many can come out of there each year. It's actually kind of interesting though that North American Arms, I don't know if we talked about this. Do you know did I already talk about what rank they are, North American Arms, as far as revolver companies?
I don't know if we talked about it or not, and I do not know.
I don't remember if I was live or not. There's not that many people watching tonight, but that'll be a trivia question. Which is bigger? Let's put it this way. Who makes more revolvers, Ruger or North American Arms?
I probably have to say North American Arms.
But anyway, so they can only make so many guns each year, but what I find is that ones I want, 22 shorts, for example, or a fancy 22 short, they just came out with a case hardened 22 short with stag handles. They're only going to make so many of those. And there's so many people that want them. Or they sit on a shelf and somebody goes, oh, that's neat. And it's only $250 sold, right? You're going in there to buy something, money's burning in a hole in your pocket. It's an impulse purchase for some people. So anyway, there's only so many of them, and so limited availability, that's definitely a thing. They'd get sold, I guess, used, but again, you don't see them that often sitting on shelves too long. And then some shops just don't have them. They don't want them. They don't like them. They don't respect them for whatever reason. They just don't want them in their store, so they just don't get them in their store. They don't order them. They don't take them in as used. So that's why you don't see them in a lot of stores, I think. But then I think what you find is when people buy them, they're either like the impulse buy, casual, like, oh, that's an interesting little gizmo or gadget. I'm going to buy that and laugh at it, or I'm going to buy that and give it to somebody or something, right? But frivolous impulse buy kind of purchase, just a thing to buy. And then some people are buying it for a reason. I don't know. There are definitely people that think they're good for something or not, maybe shooting snakes or deep concealment or third gun, whatever. There's reasons people buy them. But then I think no matter what your initial purchase is, I think there's got to be a percentage, maybe half or more. It'd be interesting if we had enough people that owned them to find out. But once you buy them, you either hate them, you think they're stupid, or you love them. And I think more often than not, people turn into some sort of a collector. You have your one, and then there's so many of them, you decide, okay, I bought the little one, I want a bigger one. I bought a big one, I want a little one. I bought this one, I want that one. and you buy maybe one or two, or maybe you start seeking one out and you end up acquiring a couple. So I think that's one of the things that, one of the reasons you don't see them too, is that there are collectors out there and they're not that expensive. And because some people don't value them at all, oh, I bought one of these things, I don't like it, I'm willing to get rid of it cheap. You trade it, you sell it, whatever, to a friend or something. So you get two or three just by scooping them up at gun shows or from people, all of a sudden you're a collector, and there's four out there that aren't on the used market. So I think that's what happens, is they're just so cheap compared to other guns, and they're so neat that even though there's not a lot of collectors, the collectors that are out there scoop them all up. It's easy to have three or four. Think how many people have multiple Berettas. You could have three or four of these for the price of like one Beretta sometimes.
Yeah. So as far as the book goes, what are you making the cover out of?
Paper.
Is it just regular 8.5 by 11, or is it a
Oh yeah, it's
hard stuff?
It's 8.5 by 11, folded in half, so 5.5 by 8.5 by 5.5, I guess. It's like a half a piece of paper size booklet. It's 33 pages, so it's basically just a booklet. So I've got it down where I'm using 24-pound paper inside, which regular paper, like if you just went to the store and got regular paper, I think that's going to be like 20. So it's just a hair thicker than regular paper, but it lets it do a full color print on one side and not look weird on the other side and not affect the other side. You can still see it. It's not like you're folding index cards in half or something. But it's a little thicker than a regular piece of paper, which hopefully will add to durability too. And then the cover, I was using that Write in the Rain stuff, but I only have like 20 pages of that anyway, or had 20 pages. But it's also it's almost like a moleskin or like a cloth compared to like paper. So it was thicker than a regular piece of paper, but not by much. So anyway, I've gone to, I forget what it's like, 65 pound, like a really heavy piece of paper that barely goes through the printer for the cover page. So that way the cover is a little bit stronger, but it's still the same size, 8.5 by 11. Anyway, then I cut it, and I got a fancy stapler now, so I can staple it all nice without having to do it like a hobo. And so the staples, knock on wood, are coming out all nice now, because I was popping holes with an awl and then like shoving a big metal staple through there and bending it over with pliers. But I bought a fancy stapler for $30, and that seems to do the trick. So especially with stuff like this size. Anyway, so it came out to, physically, I think it came out to be a pretty decent result. So whenever you do them print on demand, I haven't done one yet. That's one of the things, is I'm learning which size paper to pick. Like, for example, when I go to print, when I was going to print the almanac, I was just going to wing it. I didn't know. I was just going to pick the cheapest paper, and I was going to pick the cheapest cover. And at least now, whenever I go to print something, I have some concept of what paper and what thicknesses mean and what that means to the final product. Some of them would be so thin. The paper would be so thin, it's like I'm trying to think, like a Yellow Pages or a newspaper or something almost. So, color wouldn't even look good on it. Plus, it would bleed through, right? So I definitely wouldn't want to do something like that if it's trying to be a decent book. So anyway, it's half a sheet of paper, and it's got some color in it. So it's not going to be a buyer's guide or anything. It's just really supposed to give what knowledge I've accumulated to kind of map them out.
Yeah, like I said, it looked really good on that live chat, and like I said, it piqued my fancy just because always had an interest in them, but I've never been able to find any good resource that's just about them.
Yeah, there's nothing that I know. Well, there is. There's the North American Arms website has a forum that. Now I've been watching the forum since I've been collecting them. I started collecting them in let's say 15 or something. I really started collecting them. Well, in 11, I met Wayne Baker. So I started figuring out, oh snap, I've met like some of these people. And then in 12, I met Boget and what's his face? from Jerry from B&H, where he's the guy that forged them all. So at that point, I was hooked. I'm like, dang, I've now met literally everybody that's still alive who's ever touched one of these things. And then, in subsequent years, the ones that have come out, and I haven't had the chance to meet them, but at least, those people are all still alive. So anyway, I just thought, hey, that's neat. I can, I have some interest or some whatever relationship with some of these people. So I started, and then I'd already done the tour of the factory just because I like the little guns. But then once I figured out there's more to them, it's sort of like the Saturday Night Specials. Whenever I figured out there's more to them than just, there was this one and you can buy 10 models of it, it started getting pretty neat. For example, they start out with, back in the olden days. So the new ones, let's say the modern ones, start out with Dick Gasol. And I don't know, he's not alive, and I've not heard anybody who interviewed him. I haven't read any articles yet, but maybe there are some that talk about his reasonings for it. So all I got is talking to Jerry, who's his partner in the next company, about it. And that's influenced because it's Jerry talking about his past, right? So when Rocky Mountain Arms starts up, he makes this thing, and it's just one of he makes a black powder 22 rifle. How cool is that? A black powder 22 rifle. So think of like a Cricket, or think of like the Daisy 22 that they made for like a minute, the size of a BB gun. And it's a black powder 22. Like that would be a cool gun to just have. I don't know who would even come up with such a thing, but that's what Dick Gasol makes, right? So he comes up with a bunch of interesting guns, and then, see, I don't know the whole thing, but it turns into, he ends Rocky Mountain Arms and he goes into North American Arms. Well, I find out from reading interviews and stuff with the guy who now owns North American Arms Inc., that when those guys started North American Arms Corporation, there was all kinds of problems. And one of the problems was they couldn't pay for nothing. They were buying materials in the future, or whatever that's called, right? And then if they could sell them, type of stuff. And when they couldn't make the whole thing juggle, they basically they walked away from North American Arms. They gave it to Tally, the guy that was basically making all the parts for him. They owed him so much money for these parts. They're like, well, it's just your gun now. It's your factory. So he takes the factory and he's like, well, I guess I have a gun factory now. And he's in like Connecticut, and the gun factory's in like, Utah. So it's not like he's just going to drag the machines over. So North American Arms Corp kind of just hovers there. And that story is super interesting, right? And then it turns into North American Arms Inc. after a while, when the dude who now owns it, who works for the company that Tally said, here, I don't want this anymore. He gave it to some other company, I guess. I'm not sure of that handoff. That company says, well, we don't want it either. So they say to this guy, hey, you figure out how to sell this piece of our company. You work for us, get rid of it. And he gets rid of it by buying it. Now he still owns it. He runs it from Connecticut, or where does he live? Somewhere back east. And he barely even goes to the factory. Like the factory just runs itself. So North American Arms Corp turned into Inc. And some of the people that run it have just been working there the whole time. So it's a neat, super neat factory when you start to, or super neat just company when you think about it that way. And then the innovation and stuff comes from the collectors. You asked if there's like any place to learn about these things. Well, the company has a forum, and when you look at the development of these things, everybody was happy to just make one, and then make one that worked, a little bit better, and then that was it. They were done, and then they got rid of them. Well, North American Arms keeps making them weird and different and goofy, and it's all because collectors are out there buying them. So it's interesting. And then again, there's that parallel line between their useful, deep concealment, like effective, they're working guns. I mean, if you ever fiddled with one, they're not toys. They look like them, but they are not. They're definitely little machines. Like I've had a 22 Magnum that I don't even know if there's a way to count how many rounds we've shot through it. At the beginning, we were just shooting it to see how long it would take to fall apart. It just never did. So they can handle a lot of shooting, even though they're little and tiny. And they actually can perform pretty well if you give them time to work them, figure out how to work them. Anyway, so they're neat. And then they're also that parallel where people just completely dismiss them. There's a bunch of people that hate them. So I'm always fascinated by stuff like that, where gun owners are willing to sacrifice, firearms as if it doesn't aid everybody who's trying to get us. A bunch of different people out there. Angelina's out there. But anyway, so I've been working on that and worked on some art yesterday for it, but I'm going to be putting that down for a bit, come up for air, and get back on the calendar stuff, get that up to date for the rest of the month, then start working on next month. There's a lot of stuff in the calendar coming up here. July is insane. I guess that's when most legislation goes through. So there's like 3 times as much work and everyone call work than I would normally put into the calendar when July comes up. So I'm gonna have to start digging into that before it's right on the plate. Anyway, so once that's passed, we'll so what's anybody else out there got anything to chat about? I hate to keep this thing going if pulling teeth. I've got 6 people.
So did you? What's up?
Okay.
Did you guys open up down there in Arizona yet?
So I guess the restaurants opened yesterday, but nobody's called me to do nothing, so I haven't gone anywhere yet. But I think the state, I guess, like I say, I've kind of had my nose in the book here, so I haven't been paying that much attention. And I've been listening to, I've been listening to YouTube how-to videos. My internet's been really bad, and my private movie theaters have an issue, so I don't know if other people in the same private movie theater, if that's like a thing, or if it's just because my internet's been bad. But anyway, I've been watching YouTube videos because they're a little easier. I think the YouTube will suck down the whole video, so even if there's a lag or some good hiccup in the internet connection, I don't notice it as much. So I haven't been watching because I've been watching how-to videos on YouTube. I assume that by watching how-to videos, even if I don't watch them, if I just listen to them, it's like being in the Matrix, right? You just absorb that knowledge eventually. I don't know if Heavy's asking about AR9 platforms, or if you're asking Angelina about AR9 platforms. I'm not a fan of them. What about AR9? So AR9 meaning AR-15 with a 9mm magazine jammed into it. So it's blowback. Seems like a lot of material to have a 9mm. So I'm not a big fan. Plus, you want to have something that's got some kind of dual usefulness, and those things are all proprietary. I mean, unless I'm wrong, they don't all have a standard mag. I guess maybe a Glock mag could be standard on some of them, but internal parts and whatnot, unless you're gonna buy 6 of them or something, it just seems like a lot of effort to put 2 hands on something you can't shoot one-handed very usefully. The only thing I guess I like about them is that they are going to be precedent for removing NFA. There's obviously no reason to have NFA. Yeah, I don't really like the idea of, if you're looking for the excuse of the longer barrel, blah blah blah, then get a 223, get a regular rifle where it's effective, especially for you. I know where you're at, so you've got as much potential as anybody to have like a coyote or I don't know, something weird that happens, out across the street or whatever. And we don't live in the forest. I mean, there's some trees here, but they're not trees that we can't see past or around or through most of the time. So anyway, I wouldn't want a little fat bullet that drives kind of slow, that stop by every branch and twig. See DB Cooper out there. I was one thinking about DB the other day, actually. Were your ears ringing? Is the DB from decibels? I'm basically a sound engineer at this point. DB Cooper grew up on the streets of New York. People that don't know, breakdancing on cardboard for money and for loose change from the passersby, and then eventually scraped up enough money to become a sound engineer. But I'm gonna take them out and passing them by here. I've been watching a bunch of YouTube videos on synthesizers. I'm curious if the dB comes from decibels. So, barbecue, have you ever done any music stuff on the computers?
What do you mean by music stuff?
Either play music or fiddle with MIDIs or song stuff. There's all kinds of ways you can make music without having to be a musician by fiddling with computers, different apps or.
Yeah, no, I never did anything like that. Back in high school, I took some communications classes where we did some in-house radio broadcasting and closed circuit television stuff, which was pretty neat. But as far as just actually mixing my own music, never tried it.
Yeah, it's not that complicated. It's just like you get like a sequence going, like a pattern. You throw a couple of things in, you throw a couple of things in. So now that I'm a master of it, I figured out that it's just different machines to do basically the same thing. Sort of like a video editor. They're all a little bit different, but they're all laying down a video and they're all letting you chop up pieces and you can fiddle with them and then they have some kind of effect or some kind of a thing. There's actually some really good videos out there that I guess are better explaining than like class, well, at least class back in the day. Going to school or something to have somebody explain it to you versus having a multimedia presentation on a YouTube video that's 6 minutes long that can explain concepts and stuff. I guess he took off.
Are there any like apps where I could do it on my phone or anything?
Oh heck yeah! You ever heard of Fuck Shit Stack?
What was that?
There's a song called, I think it's called Fuck Shit Stack. Reggie White? Yeah. Oh, Reggie Watts. So this will get me copyrighted.
You take a ball up off of the ball, put it down on the floor with the shit in a glass bowl. What? Yo, here's another little piece of big bars. You take some fuck, then some shit, then some fuck, then some shit. You got a fuck shit stack, a fuck shit stack. Take some fuck.
All right, so that's this awesome video. I'll put a link to it and go watch Reggie Watts. You ever heard of that guy?
It rings a bell, honestly, but can't say for sure.
And I think he's been on TV and stuff. I don't watch TV or nothing, but anyway, so I don't know when it was that everybody heard about that shit stack video. It was like funny or whatever. But if you watch that guy on YouTube or stuff, he'll take like the phone app, like of a sampler and sampler and sequencer, which is what you're looking for. And there's apps that do those two things. So a sampler is like, you take the sound sample, and then a sequencer does like what I'm saying. It just lets you create like a pattern. Maybe it'll have 10 spots or 10 or 12 spots or some number of spots, and you just sample something and you poke it in there and then sample something else and poke it in there. So you can take like sound of paper clips falling and sound of a dog making a noise or pillow falling, just sample these sounds and put them into some kind of app. And you can kind of watch somebody do that 3 or 4 times to figure out how the app works. And then it's sort of like watching somebody fiddle with a guitar or piano. Once you figure out how to work it, you can start playing with it yourself and coming up with your own sounds and stuff. So yeah, definitely there's some apps that do it, but the problem with apps is they're apps, right? So you gotta have a phone that's decent enough for them and room for it and all that. And then you can't be getting a phone call or wanting to do Instagram at the same time. So you can do the same thing on computers. I just haven't discovered what they all are, but there's got to be some. I'm assuming there's some pretty neat. There's freeware for everything out there, right? So there's probably some pretty neat freeware stuff. I just don't know what it's all called. I don't even know what the stuff like. I think it's called sequencing and sampling. I'm not 100% on it.
I'm sure I can Google some stuff, and that's actually how I ended up finding the video editor that I've been using on my phone. So
thought maybe we got kicked off because of copyright. Everybody left. It's just you and me in here now. Nobody likes listening.
Oh.
I have a very tender audience that doesn't like listening to Reggie Watts.
By the way, those stickers I ordered on Friday got here today. Like that was super quick.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure people aren't mailing nothing because I've been noticing that. I try to get stuff in the mail because it gets there really fast now. I got one actually. I'm glad to mention that I had one that came back, but I have to contact the guy. Sometimes people give me weird addresses, and I never know if to force. I usually force them, but every once in a while, when you force it, whatever the catalog of addresses says, this is a real address. You want a link, Heavy? Jump in. And that happened to one. I forgot. I didn't actually get it back, but I got the what do you call it? The alert that it's coming back, which is kind of neat when you do things electronically now. When you just drop stuff in the mail, you don't get no info on it. When you do it the electronic way, thanks to Alan Anchor, you get a little alert when something comes back.
Never understood why people have trouble writing out their address so they can get the stuff that they need in a timely manner.
Well, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, you would think that if they've ever ordered anything before, they've done it before. Most of the time, the computer's got it stored in there, right? But then at the same time, it's possible that somebody's never ordered nothing before. It's the first time they're doing something.
It seems like something that you should learn when you're in school. Name, next line is your street address, and then next line after that, city, state, zip code.
Well, plus it's in a form, but usually it's like they'll put in like 182 dash south dash something, and I'm like, why would you put those dashes in there? So then the software will go, we don't know what this is, so here's like 6 suggestions sometimes, or else it'll just we don't have a suggestion. You want us to just use this address at your risk or something like that, because you basically pay $3, $4 to have it come back, but because they still charge the ship. But
I was wondering how that worked.
But like whenever I send stuff to Never Enough Animal, it's the same thing. Like I don't know what it is. Like there's just certain parts of the country. Maybe it's something with the machines they got there. Maybe it goes to people faster than, or I don't have any idea. But I know that certain parts will get stuff back. Well, that's not true. I don't get stuff from. I get stuff from Matt. There's no other. I can't think of anybody else who I've consistently got stuff back from.
Yeah, like I said, I was surprised. I mean, you being in Arizona and me being in Pennsylvania, I figured it would have been midweek, end of the week before I saw it. And like I said, opened up the mailbox today. I was like, oh, awesome.
Keep in mind they're not waterproof. I spilled some water on some the other day. Oh my God, they're not waterproof. So don't stick them in something that's going to be in the rain. But yeah, thanks for grabbing them. I got to try to throw a whole bunch of extra in there every time somebody buys them because they're not that great. But they are helping pay the bills, so I appreciate it very much. Let's see. So, that's the other thing I was going to be doing this week is I got to finish the calendar so I can buy that. So I'm going to be buying or updating the patch software, and we'll start doing the patch stuff this week over on the Patreon as well. And I just noticed that one of the things that the thumbnail for this video is the Gun Rights Policy Conference. I was listening to the Play Society podcast earlier. They had an awesome interview with Kim Petters in Delaware. And in the end of that show, they mentioned that the registration is already available or open for Gun Rights Policy Conference. It'll be in Orlando this year. And although I'm sure it'll be televised or whatever, like it always is, they're not planning at this point yet to have it infringed or whatever. So if you can get there, and if they are going to be limited seats, I guess that was the other thing. I don't know yet, but if they're forced to have limited seats or something, I guess the advice is to register if you think you can go. Register sooner than later. Normally, you can't register until much later in the year, so it's kind of unprecedented that they let us register this early.
Where's that going to be at?
It's going to be in Orlando. I don't know.
Orlando?
Yeah, and I guess I do know. I don't remember the hotel, but someplace in Orlando. Usually it's right next to the airport or something. They don't spare any expense. They just go to whatever the fanciest hotel is right next to the airport. At least that's what they did in Chicago and in Dallas, it seemed like. Well, I shouldn't say. I don't know if that's the fanciest. They pick a hotel right next to the airport, at least. Yeah, so then that'll be in September 18th through the 20th. And the day before is AmCon. So I don't know where the AmCon, I guess I can look what the AmCon link is if it's available yet. Actually, they sent out emails for AmCon. I don't know if they. Of course, AmCon is .org. Oh, the site's down. He was talking about. Let's see. 19 registration. Yeah, they don't have anything about the registration yet. AmCon, it's AmCon. It's worth going to if you can be there. You need all the what they can get, all the items they can get in the room. But they got these stock pictures in here. So yesterday's out there, good evening. And yeah, we're about half an hour in. It's kind of slow though, so a couple of teeth, which is anything else. Jump in, I'm going to drink a dollar store version of a Red Bull earlier, so I'm all wired up. I'm going to start working on the calendar whenever we end here.
Do you sell the calendar on the Gear website store at all?
Well, I made the almanac, so I've got the gearcalendars.com where all the events are. But as far as a calendar, I made the shooter's almanac. So as far as like talking like a wall calendar or something like that.
Yeah.
I haven't made one of those yet. I don't know. I haven't been doing it or putting out any feelers or anything like that yet. Because it's a monumental task, is that what I'm saying? At least I haven't figured out a way. I'm learning all this stuff as I go along. So I've already adapted the Shooter's Almanac into three different types of software, 4 different types of software now. As I learn what the different softwares are for and do and what they're capable of, and then what I need to print, right? Like, making it look good on a computer is one thing, and then being able to give it to a printer is a whole different thing. Either a printing machine or a service. So anyway, so I'm still learning. As far as moving it all over into a format like that, there's a place. Is it the Tactical Girls Calendar? I think it's this Tactical Girls Calendar. There's like a bunch of bikini chicks with guns, and it's like a wall calendar with a big girly picture at the top, and then however big the girly picture is, the calendar is that big underneath. And they put quite a bit of gun history in there. So I have to go buy one or something. Do I have one somewhere? I think maybe I got one for free somewhere. So I might have an old one that still would work. But that's about the closest thing I can think of right now that I've seen that has something. I mean, I'd like to think it doesn't have anywhere near as much stuff as I got in mine. I'm positive they don't have like the 1985 invention of the squirt gun or the guy that invented the squirt gun in there, or the Super Soaker, or some of the inventors and stuff. But they definitely have, some of the high points, and yeah, I mean that's about the closest thing. But no, eventually I could see it being put into that kind of format. I really need to figure out if there's some kind of calendar software, right, where I can just put everything into a date. Because the worst part would be doing it all for like, let's say 2021, and then having to redo it from scratch in 2020, whatever the next year is. You know what I mean? Like that. I doubt calendar companies do that. They must have some sort of process or something. But yeah, that's definitely one of the things I call it like in the future for the 2A history project. Well, now there's a weird
I was just thinking that'd be kind of something. What's up?
I was just saying we went down to 2 viewers there for a minute. Maybe it was just a counter on YouTube, bro. I did play that copyrighted music, so maybe it shut me down because of that or something. Now we're back to 8 people. Five lurkers, heavy.
But I thought you were allowed to play copyrighted stuff for X amount of seconds before it Dinged you.
No, you can't. Well, you can play it as long as it takes for the robot to figure out you're playing it. Back in the day, the first time I ever seen it, I was doing a 24-hour chat just to do it. And let's see, I was trying to do a 24-hour chat. Back then, you could only do 8-hour chats. So I was in the midst of I was in the first one, I think. And my goal was, or my plan was to just play music. So I was just playing music, literally, not doing anything else. I'm sitting here working on my computer playing music. So nobody could see anything. All they could hear was the music, and we were chatting. But text chatting, and it came up like with a bunch of warnings basically, and said like, if you don't quit it, we're going to shut you off. If you don't stop it. That was years ago, it seems like. So that was the original like thing. It would just nag at you, and then eventually it would shut you down. But I don't know what it is now. I think it's anything. If they hear anything, they will turn it off. And they don't always hear it while it's live like this, but like tomorrow or the next day or something, the robot will find it and it'll turn off. It'll give me the alert or whatever. It tells me that there's a copyright strike on this. There's no consequence really. It just shuts the money off. There's no money on it anyway. So the consequence really isn't a big deal, but it does technically copyright us whenever you play anything. Like I say, it's not 100%. That ninja thing, it doesn't ever pick that up. I don't know if it just can't figure it out or whatever, or it doesn't care. But that's a song, and that's a real song. Like I'm sure it'll pick that one up, and it's right off a YouTube video. So they use their, I forget what they call that tech now. There's like this little thingy that they can do with pixels, and they can tell a YouTube video playing immediately, well, almost immediately. Yeah, Night Strike got hit for a song like in the background, right? Like just the background music of a store. So it's just kind of a random thing. And maybe somebody can poke it or something. Maybe somebody can report it. Because I know that back in the day, we'd be live and people would be in stores all the time. People would walk through a Walmart or something. What's his face? Good guy would come home and go to a Walmart like half the time on his way home. He'd go to a Walmart while he was live. Well, maybe because it was at a gun shop. It's interesting. They're doing all kinds of stuff now where they're using the cell phones to figure out if people are actually hanging out next to each other and that kind of thing. So, maybe it's some sort of a location / thing. Oh, we don't like the idea that you're in a gun shop, so we're going to be extra sensitive to copyright. Yep. Those were the days. Eventually, I'm thinking we're going to make gun channels into a graphic novel. So we'll be able to memorialize all the high points of the old days, the good old days, graphic novel format. All right, well, we're.
So I got to read. Well, I was just going to say I got to read a interesting article today. Doesn't really affect anybody but me because it's just a local thing. My local district attorney said he's not going to prosecute any business owners that go against the governor's life essential or whatever the heck they want to call it, businesses being open. Mainly because it's just a summary offense if they disobey it. So the district attorney doesn't prosecute summary offenses, but he also did add in there that he has instructed all the local municipalities and even talked to the state police barracks in our area and told them to please contact him before issuing any citations to anybody that or any business owners that violate the governor's essential business orders, and any citations that would be given out would be under the most egregious circumstances. So I thought that was pretty neat.
It was on the Flight Society podcast earlier today when I was listening to an episode of, I think it was Kim Petter's episode. Later on, I think it was Rob said something to the effect of, if the police are going to if a police not wearing a mask are going to arrest you for not wearing a mask, then it's not about a mask anymore. Right?
My mother was just telling me today, she got laid off, so then she went and got a job at Aldi's because, well, right now Aldi's in my area is paying like $14 an hour for people to come help with just keeping the store clean and stuff like that. Well, they apparently had her ringing people out or something today, and she's ringing this one gentleman out, and the lady behind him had bent over to get some paper bags, and next thing you know, the guy's freaking out and almost hit the lady in the face and all this fun jazz, saying, "You're not 6 feet, you're not 6 feet, you're supposed to be 6 feet away." And so then apparently that lady's husband gets in that guy's face. People are starting to lose their minds over this stuff.
True, but it's like you say, it's the beginning of being back open, so it's going to take people a minute to get accustomed to everybody's pace or whatever. To figure out, and then we'll see as the dust settles or whatever. If looking back, people are going to be justified in their concern, or if they're double down on it, or if they'll gradually lighten up, basically. So earlier I had asked who made more guns, North American Arms or Ruger? Well, revolvers, because obviously Ruger makes more guns than revolvers. So I'll start off with a different one. Who makes more revolvers, North American Arms? And this is like last year. North American Arms or Kimber? Kimber meaning those.
More revolvers. I definitely have to go with North American Arms on that one.
Kimber makes 9,600 revolvers a year, last year. Well, basically 10,000. NAA, 50,000. We're just going to say 50,000. 49,000. So the next question then is who makes, so yeah, definitely North American Arms makes 5 times more revolvers than Kimber. So who makes more gun revolvers, North American Arms or Colt?
I think North American Arms just had them out.
So North American Arms makes 50,000.
Actually, I bet they probably did double.
What?
I was going to say, I bet they probably did double what Colt did.
So you're saying double what Colt did. If you put an answer in there, you got to be like, because of the lag and everything, be like North American Arms greater than Colt or North American Arms greater than Kimber. Right? Like, otherwise, I don't know which one you're referring to. Just say North American Arms.
Yeah, I'm thinking North American doing 50,000. I think Colt probably only made about 25,000.
Enrique's saying it depends on how much PR is being pushed. Today, local news was funded by Bloomberg Tracing Training College. Then it followed into a bill being pushed by Congress. Story about fines. That's interesting. It's really interesting. But that's probably more of a station thing. Like the one station that has Rush Limbaugh on it ain't going to accept advertisement from Bloomberg, right? So that's probably like, you're right, but there's probably an existing channel to allow that to happen in the first place. And then it's all about who's listening to those channels, right? But anyway, so back to the thing you're saying, Colt makes 25,000. Colt makes, let's just say 17,000, so a little bit less than half of what NAA makes. So then Charter Arms. No, let's do this one. Heritage Manufacturing. Do they make more or less than North American Arms? The Heritage Rough Riders. So to put it in perspective, North American Arms makes, let's say, 50,000. Colt makes 17,000. Kimber makes almost 10,000. Smith and Wesson, 200,000 revolvers last year. Actually, way more, but just round it off, 210,000, 200,000 revolvers. So where's Heritage in that mix? Heavy saying Heritage is over NAA? Definitely. So Heritage makes more. Well, okay, who makes more guns, Ruger or Heritage? I kind of ruined it by saying it that way. But yeah, Smith and Wesson 200,000. Heritage makes 187,000 revolvers. I think Heritage is owned by Taurus, so they're getting their proliferation techniques down. Then Ruger is at 145, so they're right in the middle. So there's 3 companies that make almost 150,000 plus guns, revolvers every year, and then NAA making 50,000 just revolvers, and then altogether the lesser companies don't even make up 50,000. So you've got something like 2, 4, 5, 6, almost 700,000 revolvers being made last year. I don't know how many are imported. I think the Kimbers are imported, right? So I don't know how many other ones are imported. Taurus, I guess, isn't in the list. Oh, Taurus probably wasn't in the list because this was a list of U.S. manufacturers. So maybe does Kimber make those revolvers here? I guess I don't know much about those revolvers. Yeah, I was curious how many guns NAA makes, like where they're at in the mix. They're the number 4 out of number 8 revolver manufacturers in the country. They're not kidding around. A lot of people buying them, considering they make pistols too, but there's the revolvers. They only make little tiny revolvers. They don't make like large, some of these other companies, all the other companies make a larger revolver. Nope, Ruger is under Heritage. So that's a good trivia question. Heritage is second only to Smith and Wesson, and they're almost keeping up with Smith and Wesson. So think about how many. And Heritage only makes 22s, right? Or do they make anything else?
They make big bores also, but I think they're most known for their 22s.
They make like an inexpensive kind of clones.
I think I've seen offerings in 357, 44 mag, and I want to say 45 long Colt.
So I haven't seen those though. So I guess they exist, but I mean I've definitely seen the 22s all over the place, but maybe I just haven't looked. I don't really look at cowboy guns. But yeah, they make second 187,000 heritages. That's a lot of guns. But when you look at all these people buying guns, right, going to the gun shop for the Panic or whatever, you think they're all just buying. I mean, I guess they're probably buying a lot of Glocks and stuff, but I'm sure some of them are buying like a Heritage or what looks less scary to them.
Have you seen the new Heritage revolver that has a 16-inch barrel? It is absolutely obnoxious, and I've got to get one.
Like it's like not Holiday. Wyatt Earp had one. The Hog's Leg. What do they call it? I guess the idea was that you could shoot farther with them. So it's like it's like Heavy's 9mm carbine back in the day. Yeah, 16-inch barrel. Is that a 22 or is that a 38 or something?
That one, I've only seen it in a 22. I don't know if they offered in anything else or not.
Oh, yeah. It's not. I'm looking at a picture of it here. It's not as bad as one I've seen go through the gun shop. There was this one that I think either the same gun, maybe I can't remember if it was the same gun going through the gun shop all the time, or if it came back. I don't remember. Anyway, there was this other goofier one. I think it was an H&R. So you're talking about this thing. right? Which
Yep.
definitely seems weird, but there's an H&R. That looked so goofy because it didn't have any kind of lug or anything. Thing. And this thing kept coming through the store all the time. That thing looked way goofier to me than this one. Like, this one looks normal, like somebody pulled on the nose of an elephant or something. This, though, looks like somebody pulled on a J-frame or something.
Oh, wow.
And this thing's super fragile. It's little. I think this is a Heritage Rough Rider, just longer.
Yep.
It's little too, then. It just looks better than a regular Revolver, I think. Because it looks like whatever, what was it? I think it was.
And I think they're actually the same price as the regular Rough Riders.
So this is Wyatt Earp used to carry around. Well, somebody gave him these. Somebody made like 10 of them. I forget the story. It was like somebody made some of these and gave it to some famous people so that he could say the famous people had them. So it's designed off of that. It looks pretty close to that. Just a scaled down version of that. This, I don't know. I've picked them up. I've never shot one, I don't think, but I picked them up and they just seem, like you say, obnoxious. They're just weird. Like I don't know. I don't like them. This would be a little bit different because it's smaller. It's a 22. So setting that on like what did Clover put on his like DIY stand or whatever? Was he shooting something like this? Because that's what you'd want for something like this, is some kind of a bench rest, right? Or put a stock on it. In which case, we got to get rid of that stupid NFA.
Yeah.
Well, it's 16-inch, so actually you could put a stock on it and just go, now it's a rifle. Well, you couldn't put a vert grip on it, so we got to get rid of the NFA. Or I guess if you made it into a rifle, you could put a vert grip on it. So, yeah, see, here's somebody that's got a shoulder stock on it. I don't think I'd want that one. Here's another one. I don't know what the hell happened there. Somebody just wrapped a bunch of tape on it, I guess. Then somebody put some kind of a stock and a bunch of rails on the front of it. So this must be some kind of cool Reddit thing, I guess. The AR stock on it. Put that little bird's head one up there so nobody has to think about those weird ones.
I'm not a fan of bird's heads, but I really like that.
You don't like bird's heads?
I've just never been a fan of how they feel. But man, that one was really pretty.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, they're not as bad as Beasley's. And I guess depending on the rifle, depending on the grip, I might agree with you, but I'll take bird's head over regular any day for carrying them around and looking cool.
Oh yeah, they definitely look cool.
I appreciate the old ones because I've just hung around with old revolvers too much to not. I'd never modify one, but the old ones that are bird's heads and lightnings and stuff, they're neat. That's one of the reasons I like them. They got the actual bird's heads. Bird's heads are too crunchy. Make a stew out of it.
I think one of the reasons I like bird's heads is just some of the old cowboy movies.
Well, like just carrying them around, they get hung up less. Like they don't stick out so much. So.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah, and I'm thinking of something like 38s, something larger, something to fill your hands up, not little more ones. That's when you don't really know. I don't. So I guess I'm not saying I'm a cowboy shooter. Shot them a lot, but I don't even think I own one. Nothing big, but I've shot a bunch of big ones. And I don't know. Like I say, I'd have an own. So I don't know. Maybe there's some negative to them that I don't.
I wonder what it'd be. What it would be like shooting one of those with a 45 Colt and a cowboy load.
Well, it's not bad at all. Shooting a bird's head, you mean?
Yeah.
Not at all. That's especially with a cowboy load. They're not really start shooting. It's like shooting nines or something. It's a big heavy gun. I've played around with, I've fiddled with way old guns, the old guns. They're always more delicate or fragile looking. They use less metal than the new stuff. The new stuff just doesn't even care. They just throw more metal on it all the time. So shooting some of them old ones might be different. There might be more recoil, but at the same time, they were shooting wimpier loads, I think, back in the day, or less consistent. We're missing right now, I think. This weekend, I gotta look. Yeah, well, we're about to miss the Colorado antique gun collectors gun show. So if this wouldn't have happened, I would have been in Colorado right now, or on my way to Colorado right now, to hang out at that gun show for the first time. Actually, I'm going to look and see if they rescheduled it. Maybe Colorado opened them crazy. Where's it? It's August 1st. So they rescheduled it till August 1st. That's cool. Anyway, so that would be the place to go, I imagine, to find some old guns. Wasn't the Colt Marshall the first stubby in a real caliber? That's a good question. I don't even know. I have the most I've ever looked into old West guns is when I did the deck. And I mean, it's like World War II guns for me. I'm around them constantly, and I kind of hate them, so I don't even look at them. I don't like them. But so I definitely don't absorb hardly anything about them unless they shoot like 7.62 by 39 or it was made by Bannerman or something. Like I don't hardly care at all about World War II and one and all them stupid guns. Cowboy guns are almost that level for me, but I like them a little bit more. And when I hung out at the gun shop, Bob was nuts about those things. So we were swimming in them. So I just never learned about them, I guess. And because there was always something else I didn't have to learn about. Those other people at the shop that could take over. So I just never did. So now I did the deck, I got more appreciation, especially when I started rooting around the museums. And, once you actually put some attention to it, you start figuring out the lineage and where they all fit into the big puzzle. It became way more interesting. So for me, Colts, I ended Colts when Colt died, which is, he didn't even make the SSA, right? He was dead before most of Colt happened. Like all that stuff happened after he was gone. So I don't know much about the Colts. And I'm not a collector or nothing. So I'm just learning all this stuff from like third, whatever you call that, from a distance. I'm fairly interested, but I'm not passionately interested about it. So I'm not sure. The Marshall. I'm trying to think of if I've ever even dealt with the Marshall. It doesn't ring a bell really. Guessing it's a little revolver. Colt Marshall, an American management consultant and combat decorated former captain in the Navy in Orange County, California. He's an actor from 1976 to 1995. He was in Flowers in the Attic and Illegally Yours. I think you're not talking about him, though. You're probably talking about this gun. No way. What are you talking about? This gun. Maybe he's been drinking. You're saying this is the first snubby in a real caliber? No way. This is like a modern gun. I'm going to go to Wikipedia. Is there a Wikipedia for this? Colt Single Action Army? No. Is the Colt Marshall just a nickname for something? The Colt Marshall is nothing more than a version of the official police made without a round butt. Whatever that means. But anyway, this does not look like an old gun. This looks like, what, 50s or something? 40s even? Maybe 30s. But no, I think the first big revolvers, big caliber revolvers that were little were called bulldogs. I guess I should put revolver in there. Don't feed a dog a bunch of bullets and expect them to do anything about it. But this thing here is a bulldog, and Webley made these. So then you got these British bulldogs, and then they make puppies, which are tiny little bulldogs made by Webley. And where do you think those are going? Where is that headed? And they call them velo dogs because of the bulldog part. And velo is how they, mass Europeans say bicycle. So then you get these little velo dogs. But those come from Webley's, which were 45s. And their whole thing was they were a little 40, like a little big ass gun. But here's a bulldog and a puppy next to each other. Pretty different size. I don't see any pictures of a guy holding a bulldog. This is what it looks like when you put a bulldog in the grass. Look at this. That looks like my Paris gun. So it turns out my Paris gun is a velo dog. A puppy. But what did I put puppy in here? Maybe that's why. Get rid of puppy. Hold on. See how little that is? I mean, it's nothing as much as the little ones, but as far as a 45, and these are 455 Webley, I think, right? That gun or that bullet from the wall, maybe the wall. So how badass is that? A little tiny revolver made to shoot what a big ass Webley shoots. So these things were pretty neat. And these were like 18. The bulldogs, the bicycle was invented in 1830, and the baby bulldogs were 1873. So Smith & Wesson invents the bored-through cylinder in 1857. These things take 20 years to get over to England and copy off of us. So, Webley, and then they take like 5 minutes. I think the bulldogs were made like 2 years before the puppies. So as soon as they made a small giant revolver, they were like, oh, we need this to be tiny. And it was like, the women and the prostitutes and what would eventually become 9mm shooters, like the ancestors of 9mm shooters, all shot the little puppies. But no, seriously, like the prostitutes and the ladies would put it in their boobs. And that's what they would use to repel boarders back in the day. And then, like, if you type in bicycle gun, whenever that bicycle was invented in the 1930s or 1830s, they figured out revolver. They did put machine guns on bicycles and use them in the war, but they also did cool shit like handlebar in there. Wait for me. Oh, Google, bunch of jerks. If you dig into, let me just go to the source, huh? Velo dog, I think. No. This is the bullet they shot. So this is a 22 short, kind of. The first bullet invented by Smith & Wesson, first bullet ever. 22 long rifle, invented a couple years later. This is a velo dog. So this is the 5.5 velo, or something. Maybe it's 5.5, 5.3, 5.5. It's a center fire. So this is a long rifle or a Magnum probably. So it's longer than a Magnum, but it's center fire. And that's why these revolvers have very long cylinders. See how long that cylinder is. Then they figured out nobody's going to stupid ass caliber, so they started making them rim fire, making them smaller. Eventually, this is like what do you call like a archive, a guy that's trying to document a whole bunch of cool ones. And I think in here somewhere I saw this one that is this one's pretty cool. Like this one folds up a little. but there was a cool bicycle one. I think it was on this guy's page. That's the little purse your mom would carry around with her. Somebody was trying to rape her or something. She grabbed that little purse. Well, there's one that held 20. Maybe it isn't this page. I don't know. I don't remember scrolling this far down. This one's kind of neat. Where'd it go? Wonder how that shoots. Let's see if I can. Bar. Here it is. Look at this little guy. This little guy jams into the handlebars of your bike. So you're just driving around minding your business. Somebody screws with you. You just yank the end of your handlebar off, and you got basically a NAA revolver shooting out of there. That's awesome. This needs to exist. There needs to be no NFA, and then stuff like this has to be around. And this is what Heavy would do if he had a bike. And then Ivor Johnson. I didn't know that they made bicycles and rifles, so they'd be like, hey, why don't you buy your kid a bicycle and a rifle for Christmas? Because that's what they want.
What a time to be alive.
Yeah, I think being around in like the 20s would have been pretty interesting. That could be an interesting topic for a whole, we could have a channel on that. Like just have discussions about different aspects of things and what it would have been like back in the day. I mean, some things would have been awesome back in the 20s, but I guess getting cholera or some shit would have sucked. Getting scurvy, like just forgetting to eat oranges because you don't think about it, but nothing you eat has oranges in it. That's actually an interesting thing. I've been watching a bunch of these things. Go look at the history of orange juice. That's pretty interesting. Completely formulated situation right there. Engineered part of our meal, or what do we call it, part of our menu. The single action arm, scroll down. Oh, I'm looking at the wrong thing from back in before he's saying. So a Colt Marshall. That's A. SAA. Oh, images. Yeah, I don't know that one. But I mean, I guess. I don't know. Like I said, I'm not sure. I thought the Patterson was pretty cool. That's the one with the trigger that doesn't have a trigger guard. It just folds down. And then, the Walker is the shit. Right? And then, then he makes the SAA, single action army, and he invents it and he dies, I think, is how it went, right? Colt's pretty cool, but there's books written about Colt. Like, I just can't be all that interested. I like discovering stuff online, and there's nothing written about some of the stuff I've dug into. So the Colt stuff is no fun because it's just reading 6 or 8 books that already exist and then bickering about which book you believe. At least that's what it seems like when I listen to old guys bicker about Colts and stuff. Scroll down, no AC either. Am I missing stuff? I don't know what he's saying about the AC. I don't know if Heavy, you've been to Tombstone before, but the Gunfighter and Lawman Museum, I forget what it's called, but it's like the gun museum that's there. They've got, he says he has a lot of people's actual guns, but at least he has representations of all the different guns. I wouldn't be surprised if there's something like a Marshall down there, because that would be the kind of, the famous people from the West would be the kind of people that would use the fast one. I'm guessing you're talking like the one that John Wayne kind of short. Well, he didn't use bird head grips though. I've definitely seen John Wayne's guns a million times. Well, all right. So with that, we're at 7 people listening, but for an hour. I don't know. Let's see, need to pull teeth. Anything else?
I don't have anything.
Right on. Well, I appreciate you jumping in. We did throw the link out there on the chat, so people had the chance to jump in. We had a pretty active chat with Effie and others jumping in tonight, though. Ricky was out there. Me. DB acted like he was out there, but he's living fake. Angelina, Bob, Ozzy, and that was it. And then, of course, Barbecue was in here. So thanks everybody for showing up live. Let's have fun. I'm doing these shows, 1,082 times, whatever. I'm sure a lot of people have done 1,082 podcasts, but we'll keep doing it. We'll be back here tomorrow on the Gun Museum. What are you saying? The Gun Museum that got sold was cool. Are you talking about the one that was on Main Street? I know that lady. We can go in there anytime you want, dude. But I'm talking about the one that's down by the shootout, where they, not the main corral, but down south of town, where they have the mine and they do that like shootout every hour or something. That's the Gunfighter and Lawman Museum. The guy won't let me. He lets me take pictures, but he doesn't want to like advertise it, so he won't like. Doesn't even have like a website or anything. So the best you can do is like look on Google Maps, I guess, and figure out his phone number. But he's kind of like when he feels like it. It's like going to a fishing town and seeing if the bait guy's open. Like if he ain't out fishing, he's open, kind of thing. The Gun Museum got sold when we went to. So I don't know which one you're talking about. Did me and you go to one? I don't remember going to one with you. But anyway, there's the one museum that the guy died years ago, a couple years ago now, and his wife kind of has closed it down. We helped her sell some of the stuff in that, and she's super nice. We know her, and we could go in there. It's closed. I got a lot of pictures from the Old West Guns deck and the Firearms Inventors deck from her museum. And then the other museum, like I say, he's let me take pictures in there before. Me and Jimmy. Oh, okay. So yeah, that's the one I'm talking about. You're saying that got sold? Damn, I don't even remember going down there with you and Jimmy. Oh yeah, now I do, because we went over to the Fort Echuca too. I remember all that now. Yeah. So yeah. So, and that guy got sold, or is that a typo? Trying to chat with him on the chat. Sorry for the narrow casting. That guy, definitely, that we're talking about the same museum. He's got a lot of interesting stuff in there, and it's in dioramas is the thing. So you can get pictures of it, but it's not like on a white background. At the other museum I'm talking about, she just lets me take the stuff out of the case and I can put it on whatever background I want and get a nice studio quality picture of it. And she's got some amazing stuff. I mean, it's literally amazing. Oh, now, okay. So we went into that museum. That's right. Shit, you went with me when we went in there. Now I'm back on track. I thought she said she was selling it. So that did not go through. That's what we're talking about. I believe that did not go through. She was going to sell the museum, but yeah, we're back on track. Actually, if you ever want to go down there again, last time I went down with Clover, it's changed quite a bit. There was a gun shop that's closed now. So one gun shop has closed down, another gun shop has opened up. The last 2 times I've been down there, it's still open. And I can't imagine. I hope that Tombstone's going to get quite a bit of attention with everybody being able to go out again, looking for places and things to do. So it's a cool place. Get down there before it gets too hot. So there's a little bit of narrow casting at the end or whatever. But with that, I guess we will end up wrapping it up. So thanks to the Patreons for making it possible for me to take the time to spend on the projects like, all the projects that got deleted, for example, the 50 States of 2A and the other book and the Almanac. I don't even want to think about it. I have portions of both the Almanac and the 50 States, but instead of trying to go back and pick up the burnt remains of those, I dug into the mini Revolver book. So thanks again to the Patreons for the time there. Hopefully we'll have some fun with the evolution of that book here. I'm trying to figure out a routine, a pace to get these things done as I learn the whatever's involved in it. And got some other fun stuff. I'll be installing the software so we can sew some patches, and we'll be doing some voting over there this week, I suppose, on Patreon to decide which free gun patch I'm going to send out to Patreons this month. And then we'll figure out which of those 3 guns we'll be making the patch up. Right on. So, yeah, keep in touch, Heavy. And thanks again to Barbecue for jumping in. He used the link over on the Patreon. I'm attempting to drop a link over there before the show starts so that if I'm working on stuff, people can jump in and chat. Some people enjoy chatting off air and just BS, ask questions, or hang out and whatever. And then take off when we're live. Otherwise, if you want to hang around, stick around when we're live. The idea would be to have a rockin' show. Whenever we do the graphic novel for channels, you'll learn more about the fun times and the after chats and the off airs and all the craziness that happened when, I don't know, I guess when Obama came along and decided to use the executive branch like a club on our freedoms, and a bunch of people decided to get together. And after about, I don't know, 8 months or 10 months of that, we all realized we had just resisted without any kind of organization or influence by 3-letter organizations, that instead a bunch of people just efforted in lots of different ways, and no one was looking for credit and everyone was happy in that accomplishment. And we didn't desperately, but we definitely interestedly looked around at each other to figure out what to do next. And those were the days. And those chats created things like Every Second Matters. They created gun channels. They made channels exist. They gave people ambition and encouragement, and then they made channels leave. They made channels understand that this isn't all just garbage, waste of time for your amusement, that instead these are powerful tools. And anyway, that's what the nighttime chats used to be, and why I have 1,087 of these chats, even though on the surface they might suck, and I'm certainly not begging for views. I'm going to keep doing the show so that we get people like Barbecue and Heavy and others to jump in and be part of these conversations where we can make some stuff happen. Won't be the same as it was back in the day. Hopefully it'll be more effective, though. So I do thank you, Barbecue, for continuing to jump in and keeping the lifeblood flowing of this show and what we're trying to do. And all the people that might be listening to this in the future, be part of it all. Leave some comments. Jump over on Patreon. Jump over to gunstreamer.com. Check out guntube.org. I've been checking that out lately. Night Strike is kicking the crap out of it. So I've been looking at stuff about NAS servers. I need to have a chat with a couple of tech people here, and let's talk about what Night Strike needs, because, man, he's kicking butt on the software side over there. So if you haven't looked at guntube.org, check it out. I'll quit saying stuff. We'll be back tomorrow. Be back to pick you up later.